So what has been the process? So you're on your way to the bubble. You have to go through some more time at your house, and then once you get down and try to get to Orlando and get into the property, what do you have to go through to get in?
Well, I mean, the way I understand it is you get there and, you're escorted, by transportation provided by the league. Because once you get there, everything has to be done with the health and safety of everybody involved as the number one priority. So, you're really at the mercy of the process when you get there. And you have to clear 48 hours of quarantine and, make sure you don't have positive tests during the 48 hours you're initially hitting Orlando and hitting the bubble. And then you have to quarantine in your room for a week before they let you out to go around the 40 square miles of the actual bubble and kind of do your job. And also once you get there, there's a long list of rules and regulations you have to sign off on before they allow you to get a badge and get a wristband and be able to go about the business of trying to cover what is an unprecedented, NBA playoffs and chase for a championship.
Well, you mentioned the Russell Westbrook treatment because he did test positive and he's still at home. I don't know if he's in LA or in Houston, but he's waiting for clearance. He's waiting for a negative test, and then he's going to have to get in there and go through the same treatment. But James Harden is linked to him, and I saw a report that James might jump on the bird with Russ once he gets cleared to go in there.
I think he just rolled in.
Did he just get in?
No,
okay.
Harden just arrived. Yeah.
Oh, did he? Okay.
Yeah.
So what was the holdup though? What was the holdup for him? Like, why was he connected to Russ, and now all of a sudden he's decided to go in?
Nobody knows. I mean, Kawhi Leonard had a delay getting there as well. And they said that it was for, he was taking care of family business. I mean, listen, when you think about the amount of time these guys are going to spend there, even just for the teams that are going down for the seeding games, that's a long time to be, in that predicament with your family, not allowed to be in there, of course, until we get into the playoff portion of the bubble. You're talking about making a sacrifice, and I'm not here to tell you that they're making sacrifices, that would be commensurate with what frontline workers are doing or people who don't make near the money they make are doing this. We're talking about a different level. But this is still being away from your family during a global pandemic that is as unpredictable as anything we've ever lived through. That's tough to do, to be able to, extract yourself from your home environment you've been in for 4.5 months where you're around each other every day and you can eyeball the safety of all your loved ones. To be away from that and to not have that control over the situation anymore, I can understand why a lot of these guys are wanting to make sure they tie up any loose ends before they head off to what could be as many as 82 days for the teams that make it to the final.
That's a long time, lots to think about, and guys are struggling clearly. Some guys opting out, some guys not sure. Victor Oladipo said he was not going to play. Now he's talking about that he will potentially play. How much does he change Indiana if he decides to go? What kind of threat do they become in the East if Victor plays?
Yeah, I mean, that is a huge question mark. The fact that he would actually join that group down there and participate makes the Pacers a much more dangerous team, you would think, at least theoretically. You add an all-star player, with the, abilities that he has. But I'll be honest with you, I have a hard time. I know a lot of people want to see a Cinderella team or somebody come out of nowhere and kind of disrupt the order of things down there. I have a hard time seeing that happen because even with the seeding games, the 8 seeding games everybody plays and the potential play-in games that could happen, we're still going to get to the playoff portion of this and look up and say, all right, well, who has the components you need to win a championship? And it's going to be the usual suspects. It's going to be the teams that are the deepest, the most seasoned, that have had some scar tissue in terms of playing deep into the postseason. I mean, and I don't know why we would assume it would be any different just because they're playing in one location, because they're still going to be playing best-of-7 series, and that means 9 times out of 10, the best, deepest, most cohesive and seasoned team is going to win that series.
We're chatting with Sekou Smith from NBA.com and NBA TV. So how does that logic apply to the Raptors and their potential for a run, considering they've been through it? Yeah, Kawhi's not here, but they're on pace for 60 wins. Kyle Lowry has, I think, set the tone. He said, we're not making complaints. We're not going to whine about anything. We're here on a mission, and we're going to follow through on that. I love that attitude. I love that message. Where do you stand on the Raptors and their chances?
I think they're one of 4 teams in the East that have a legitimate chance of coming out and being in the finals. I don't think there's any doubt about it. People have to remember how good the Raptors were last year when Kawhi didn't play during the regular season. We probably should have paid more attention to that. By the time the Raptors got deep into the playoffs, it made more sense. This isn't a one-man group. And no, let's not kid ourselves. Kawhi gave them that edge and put them over the top. But they were a competitive group without him throughout the course of the season. They showed that their depth and certainly the moves they made last year to kind of rearrange that roster all paid dividends. So I think they've, shown themselves to be right in the same category with Boston, in Miami, and to me, the Bucks in the East as teams that you could look at and say, I could absolutely see them coming out of a long playoff slug and getting to the finals again for the Raptors. But certainly those teams, in my mind's eye, have the kind of talent, depth, cohesion, and discipline to make a long run. And I think Philly is the outlier in the East only because you just don't know what you're getting out of Embiid and Simmons all the time. But there are 4 or 5 teams in the Eastern Conference that could very well see coming out.
Yeah, I was going to pick up on Philly being the odd man out because I think a lot of people would feel that Philly, talent-wise, belongs in that conversation with the top 4 in the East. Do you get the sense that Simmons, Embiid, and the rest of the Sixers will have put in the work and show up for this play-in into the playoffs as their best version of themselves, or are you not so sure about that?
I'm not sold yet, and I guess I need to see them do it as opposed to hearing about them being in that mode. They're super talented. Everybody understands that. But they've given us no indication that they're going to play the type of basketball that leads to them breaking through and being a team that we see make it all the way to the finals or even the conference finals. I just haven't seen it consistently enough, certainly from their 2 best players, but also they got kind of a hodgepodge mix, surrounding those guys right now. I don't know if Tobias Harris and some of those other guys are built for this. We'll see. I think they're a team that could be, but I think they're a notch below those other teams I mentioned until further notice, until we see evidence to the contrary.
Some of that on the coach, Sekou, to kind of harness those talented players. You hear about Embiid and Simmons specifically, and very talented, but, do they play together? Do they mesh well? Do they buy into whatever game plan? Is some of that not on the coach to make sure that they do?
Sure. I mean, there's a ton of it on the coach. And there are a few guys in the coaching ranks with more pressure on them than Brett Brown. He totally understands that. I think anybody who pays attention knows that when you look at their situation, if you continually come up short of what everybody, including your ownership and your front office, think is your potential, the first place they go is questioning whether or not they got the right person leading the group and in charge of them. So Brett Brown is going to be coaching for his future with the Sixers, I'm sure, and when the action kicks off in the bubble. And he understands that if they don't get it done, if they fall short of whatever the internal expectations are, that it'll be his head on the line, unfortunately. And that's just the nature of the business. Coaches know that they get hired to get fired someday. And it's a matter of can you kind of hold off the posse long enough and get a team to play at a high enough level to give yourself some better security.
With Sekou Smith from NBA.com and NBA TV. Over on the West side of things, I mean, LeBron is always going to draw the most attraction and most clicks and most, chatter, and he deserves that. But his team has been hit. Avery Bradley opted out. Rajon Rondo is now injured, out 6 to 8 weeks. How significant are those absences, and how might it affect the way the Lakers roll in the West?
Based on matchups, it could be huge. Say Portland gets that A seed in the West, and you're the Lakers, and you got to deal with Damian Lillard and C.J. McCollum, fired up and, ready to go after making a playoff run during these seeding games. That's a dangerous proposition. Or say you get to the conference finals and the Clippers are there with all their depth, and perimeter ability, to put pressure on you. There's a lot riding on this playoffs, obviously, for LeBron and Anthony Davis and the Lakers, and none of it is made easier by not having Avery Bradley, and then Rondo. He was in spectacular shape, getting injured right away when you get to Orlando and start practicing, and being out 6 to 8 weeks. That's a huge setback for the Lakers. But again, they've proved themselves to be one of the best teams in the league all season long. I don't know that it's going to be something that prevents them from making it, to the conference finals and deep into the postseason and potentially into the finals. I mean, LeBron and AD are that good. You'd be hard-pressed to find two players better than their two best players. It's a matter of, can they find some other guy, other group of guys to step up and play at a high enough level long enough for them to chase a championship deep into, I was going to say the summer, but deep into the fall.
Yeah, and Rondo with 6 to 8 weeks will still put him back likely in the second round. So they're just starting this journey. He's not going to be gone the whole time. And the West really seems like the LA teams, Lakers, Clippers, and then a whole bunch of really good teams. So who do you like out of that mix of Denver, Utah, OKC, Houston, Dallas? They all have good records. They're all very similar. Which one of those groups is a title contender, not maybe just to win a round or two?
That's a tough thing for me. I look at the West, and I don't see 4 or 5 teams I can see winning the championship like I do in the East. I really don't. I think they're all talented, quality teams, but I think they all have fatal flaws. Like, I can't see Denver, skipping the steps they would have to skip to make it to the championship round this year. Portland, another team. We don't know what they're going to get out of Zach Collins and some of those younger guys they're going to lean on. OKC has deficiencies. Houston, does their small ball routine work, to the tune of a championship? Dallas, are we really convinced that Luka and Porzingis can be the two best players on the championship team at this stage of their careers? You know what I mean? Every other team in the West has kind of a glaring fault that could be exploited by any of those 4 or 5 teams that come out of the East. Can you imagine if Milwaukee was to get their hands on somebody other than the Lakers or the Clippers in the finals, the way they've played the last 2 years? I mean, that people in Milwaukee would be dancing in the streets. And I think the same would go for a team like Toronto with their seasoning and understanding of how to play, in these high-pressure moments against a team, say that doesn't have that experience, it hasn't been there before. It's just it's a lopsided affair after those first 2 teams in the West to me. And you could really jumble them up in any order, and they're all similar. Talented, with the opportunity to take that next step in the playoffs, but certainly we need to see them do it before we just start, forecasting which one of them could make that leap.